recent, and he's also one of our principal consultants in Cisco. So together we have been working for 1 year, and during this 1 year, in Cisco IT, again, Cisco is an ocean. There's a lot of things happening in Cisco. We represent one unit. I'll talk about that in a little while. We have been working for 1 year on one area of Cisco, which is called Cisco IT, where we are doing a lot of transformational work. And he's helping us in all of those transformational work from a QA perspective. My name is Abhiram, and I've been in Cisco for 2 years. I've been in the industry for a while now, about close to 17 years. And during my tenure in Cisco in particular, I've seen a lot of change already. Purely in terms of tools, we have seen about almost like more than 24 tools being introduced within IT. 24 development tools and QA tools. It's a lot of change, for anybody to observe. So the question what we are going to address today is, how are we doing these changes without disrupting, without kind of going back either on quality or on the speed factors. We are particularly going to talk about risk-based testing, but the model that we have put in place is applicable to almost any change that we want to implement. So to set the context for this presentation, it's not about RBT. It is about how we adopted RBT, how we implemented, rolled it out across the organization, where everybody in the organization started moving in the same direction. Okay? And I'll also give you a little bit of context about the size and volume of the organization that we are talking about, so you understand it more clearly. We were also supposed to have Jagdish Bhandari, who's one of the service managers handling some of the critical portfolios in our area, WebEx and Cisco.com in particular. But unfortunately, because of some issues back in office, he couldn't make it. So we're going to be talking on his behalf as well. So starting off with the presentation, the key objectives with which we wanted to implement RBT are over here. We wanted to kind of look at what is the effort, overall effort that we are spending today for quality services. Can we optimize the effort? But it just doesn't stop at the effort. We're also looking at, can we positively impact quality? Right? It's not just about optimizing effort. Nobody does anything anymore just to optimize effort. They outsource it. But if you really want to make an impact, you should also look at the other two of the triple constraints, quality and speed. So the objective with which we adopted RBT was to move the needle in the right direction in all of these three key parameters. Right? So let me elaborate. I know this is very high level. I know this is like a dream for any of the directors, for any of the initiatives they want to run. But let's elaborate. Let's look at how this translates to project level metrics. So conventional way of working when, a few years back when we didn't have all these complexities and strategies were not required, testing was done almost like, in an ad hoc manner. We started with the first test case. If there were 100, we went to the last test case. Once it's done, we are done. Similar approach is followed by development. They just start developing the first requirement that is thrown at them, and they kind of keep going forward, and they deploy in the same fashion. What we try to do, and this is our definition of RBT in Cisco IT. Is we try to kind of streamline, not just the testing process, not just the test execution process, but the entire process starting from the way requirements is gathered and analyzed to the way it is actually delivered and deployed. Right? So what I'm showing here is a portion of it where test case execution gets streamlined. This is one of our key metrics at a project level. And the way the defects are open. In both the cases, we want to see the most impactful work being done way ahead in time. That was the key objective. And there you can see how it translates to the release decision earlier, but suppose we don't want to release, we can always do more testing, which results in more coverage and better quality. Either ways, there is an improvement. that's really what we are implementing in Cisco. Just to give a little bit of context now about the organization we work for, and there are a few of my colleagues also here. We work for an organization in Cisco called GSQS. This is Global Support and Quality Services. So it's a very unique organization where both quality as well as production support rolls up to the same directors. So at any given point of time, there's a lot of attention, a lot of focus on production issues. So we look at quality before the release as well as after the release. Both are our responsibilities. Okay, and therefore, in a lot of discussions, staff meetings, and almost everywhere, we look at what is the change that is going to happen in the next few months, as well as what is the impact of the change that we recently did. And therefore, our test cases and everything that we do kind of gets improved automatically over time. Right? So that's one of the key elements here. So there is also the third element, which I'm not brought here, because it's primarily a QA discussion, which is what happens after the release. How is it impacting the quality? That's also something which we measure, but I have not brought that aspect here. Moving on, before we move any further, I just want to go back here. So RBT is it's been there for a while as a process, as a strategy. There's nothing new in terms of what RBT itself is about. There are several ways where it's being enhanced, it's being even further optimized in a more powerful scientific way. So this presentation is not really about how we did RBT, or rather RBT itself. It's about how we did RBT. Right? What are the challenges we faced purely in terms of implementing it? And why did we face those challenges, and how did we overcome? By implementing a model that works for almost any other strategies which are similar. So let's look at that a little. Okay, so this is again, I'm talking about the organization within Cisco that I work for, which is GSQS. We almost take care of quality and provide quality and production support services to almost all of the IT applications in Cisco. So in terms of purely the technology challenges, we have almost all technologies that we support, that we test. Almost all of these technologies and systems are probably one of the biggest implementations for the respective vendors. Right? If you, for example, if you take content management, we use Adobe CQ. So we manage more than 5 million digital assets using this, and it's one of the biggest Adobe implementation outside of Adobe.com itself. I know this because I worked in Adobe before I joined Cisco. So if you take auto management, or if you take just the SCM, where we have Oracle 12, Cisco is a $40 billion company. Almost all of the revenue, all of the orders flow through our Oracle R12. So there's no way this app can be down even for a second. It impacts everybody. Our CEO wakes up and kind of starts asking questions if that happens. So the impact is huge for business. There's legal impact, etc. So that's the complexity of the system that we're dealing with. And the technologies are everything from great-grandfather of technology to the newborn. We have almost everything over there. And it's not really a well-architected process because it has evolved over time. That's the complexity from a technology perspective. From a process perspective, we have multiple development models. We have different tools, both for testing as well as development, that are not really connected. So that's something which we are trying to kind of reduce the complexity there, but that's the system as of today. And we have multiple release cycles. It's not really coordinated. We have some projects are following monthly releases, some are quarterly releases. We do have a lot of emphasis on quarterly releases. There's some transformational work, like upgrade from Oracle 11 to 12, which we call as the long projects, which is like 2 quarters in duration. So it's like half-yearly releases, and then we have other things, and multiple environments. And then on all of this, we do multiple tests, which is, I guess, all of us are doing that, right? The additional complexity, this is on the process side. From a people perspective, we are we have a lot of partners working with us, right? So the Cisco core is small, and there's a large dependency on partners who provide services for us. They are distributed. We have more than 30, 40 ODCs across the world where we do our stuff. That is just in our organization, which is about 1,000 folks, 1,200 folks. Okay, so dealing with all this technology, process, and people complexities, and on top of that, not everybody is on the same page. meaning not everybody is on the same level of maturity. Some people are, welcome change and want to kind of roll with it as quickly as possible. They want to adopt RBT or automation or any strategy that we give in the next few days. Some people don't want to implement. They don't want to change. They are quite okay with what they have. So this is from an IT perspective. From a business perspective, when we talk to business and say, okay, give me your top requirements so I can test that first. Businesses test everything. Don't optimize. I'm giving you money. There are certain other businesses who say, okay, this will help us go faster. So let's do it together. I'm going to work with you very closely, right? So, and therefore we don't want people to go in different directions. We want all of the organization to stay together in terms of strategy and start moving in the same direction. And that's the complexity I'm talking about. It's related to change on how we kind of make sure that we understand where people are and help them move in a common direction. So that is the context for this discussion. And the next few slides talks about how we did this in the last 1 year. I'll hand it over to Sukesh.
Yes. So given this complexity, we wanted to come up with a process which is very simple and adaptable. So we kind of came up with this 5-step approach. So the first step was really to baseline the projects. There were a lot of projects and a lot of criticality within the application. So what we did was we looked at the projects, we looked at the test types, tools, what kind of process they are following, and then we baselined that. So once we had a baseline, so we wanted to give tools or opportunity for test managers to decide what level they want to be. As Abhiram mentioned, that different applications and different projects have different criticality and different priorities. So given that situation, how do we kind of give tools to test manager to scale themselves to the next level, so that they are in the continuous improvement path. The next step was more of an assessment. How do we measure where we are? Are we in the right direction? Are we scaling in the right direction? Right. So and then give out the opportunities of improvement and what are the things that they need to do as a next step. And in case if there are those opportunities, if they get into some challenges, we were there to help them. So as Abhiram mentioned, that there are several projects and several projects have several application. Each and every application have different focus. Say for example, there are e-commerce applications wherein which they focus on the order creation. So for that, the focus needs to be more on the test requirement and the test data. Whereas there were applications, wherein which they were kind of web-based application. The focus needs to be on UI or browser-based, browser compatibility. So so we came up with this framework wherein which you can customize the way you want for your project. So as I told earlier, we came up with this bar model. So I know given Friday evening, most of you like So yeah, so with this, what we did was actually, we actually took a snapshot of each and every project, analyzed, the process what they are following, the tools they are, implemented, and what is that best practices they are following. How do they adopt RBT in a right way, right manner, so that they get the maximum benefit out of it. So that we called it as baseline. And then we kind of, told projects to start implementing it. And then, so we kind of did the assessment. That was the assessment part. We assessed, based on, the baseline. So as part of the assessment, we also kind of, want teams to choose which level, they want to be. So I'm going to talk about, the model, which we created, a maturity model. Then, the last step is, really about the reporting. How do we report, where we are, what we are doing, how we are doing, and what are the gaps. So mostly that was about, report. So moving on, so as I mentioned earlier, so we created this maturity model. So we recommended, 4 levels: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. Depending on the project criticality, depending on project priority, test managers can choose what level they want to be. Example, so for example, if you have an application which is just a UI-based application and the criticality is less, they can choose to use, or get into bronze level. But whereas a finance-related application, which is very critical in terms of finance data, so they can choose to be in gold level. So this really gave an opportunity for test managers to also kind of take a roadmap. Say for example, I'm managing a project which is very critical, and I'm at bronze level. So how do I reach to gold level? So this maturity model actually gave them the clear roadmap on how do they take a step-by-step approach and then reach the level they want to be at.
So what I want to add here is that we gave the flexibility to the project teams to choose to what level of maturity they want to be. Like if it's a, let's say, a internal application, HR application, like a learning tool, they don't have to really do too much of testing. They don't even have to optimize it. They can just deploy it, and if there are any issues, the impact is not much. Whereas if it's a supply chain management, the impact is huge. In addition to cost, there is legal impact, there are so many other related impacts. So there, we still need to optimize our test suite, but we need to be very careful and conscious of quality. And they need to really be at a gold level, where we are going to be using sophisticated tools and techniques. So that's the flexibility we give back to the project team. So the decision was really for the project teams to figure out, depending on the criticality and the kind of work they're doing, what is the right level of maturity they have to conform to. And this also gives us a platform to figure out where they are currently. Maybe one QA team has a strong testing practice already, and they're already at a silver level of maturity. All they have to do is move towards gold. They don't have to go back and do a lot of things which we have recommended at the bronze level. So they give a starting point as well as a direction for almost all the teams, in terms of how they want to move, how they want to take it forward.
Moving on, the assessment part. So what we did was, we kind of broken down the STLC into 4 dimensions: risk assessment, test planning, test execution, and RBT metrics. So for these 4 dimensions, we came up with several parameters to assess individual projects. So for example, for risk assessment, we were looking at is the requirement being assigned risk factor? Are the all requirements being prioritized? Are all are all stakeholders, for example, IT, development, then QA, production support, or whoever it is, the product owner, are all of them are part of the risk assessment or not? So what kind of data complexity each one of they are gold or platinum. So whatever you see on the right-hand side is a sample project report where one of the project was actually doing very well on test planning and test execution, but they were lacking in RBT metrics and then risk assessment. And the below a detailed report, what you see is rack status, which tells which exact indicator they are actually lagging, and how do they take a look at the maturity model and they take next steps to achieve the next level in the maturity model. So moving on, so as I mentioned earlier, so we wanted to give the flexibility to projects depending on their priority, criticality, to choose what kind of RBT implementation they want to. So this is one of the e-commerce application so where they actually prioritize the requirement with the help of business, IT, and QA. So the way we kind of looked at with the metrics was, so for each of the risk parameters, so how was the test cases or test requirements were broken down into high, medium, and low. And then so as Abhiram mentioned earlier, the benefit of RBT was to kind of catch early defects, right? Early high priority defects. So the second chart actually gave us a view of how we are actually catching high severity defect in earlier environment, like Devint was one of the QA So how did we find, the defects early? Then, the last chart, what you see is like, the time reduction. So it gave us an indication that, we are almost saving around 15 to 20% of, cycle time with this adoption. So this is another, case where in which I'm talking about a MDM project, which was actually a data intensive, application. So what we did was we customized and, we actually took a two-step approach here. So first implement prioritization on, test cases, and then apply on test data. So that in turn actually helped team to achieve, very good cycle time reduction. On the test data, there were a lot of permutation combination, but because of the strategy, we kind of, helped them to nail it down to, 40% of saving at the end of the implementation. So whatever you see here is, the enterprise, view. So there were, projects. So after our assessment, what we did was we looked at all of the projects, and then, we saw there were projects who were doing extremely well on, test execution, but there were, several projects which were not doing that well on their test execution. So we kind of hooked both the teams and, kind of asked them to share the best practices so that it can be taken and implemented in that project. So whatever you see on the lower right-hand corner was another representation which actually helped us, say as an organization, there is a good amount of work being done on the test planning and test execution, but there was definitely an opportunity of improvement on the risk assessment and the RBT metric side. So after we implemented this framework, what we saw was, the adoption, chart, what you are seeing. From quarter on quarter, we are seeing a upward trend, and pretty much most of the projects are actually inclined towards adopting this methodology.
Thank you, Sukesh. So to kind of summarize, wrap up, I just want to kind of iterate what we discussed. First of all, sometimes, we have very good tools, very good strategies, but it all gets stuck when it comes to adoption for various reasons. So it's important for us to focus, have an adoption strategy in place, along with the kind of tools and plans that we have made. This is one lesson we learned early. We had tried implementing RBT in various forms. It just didn't work. Worked for some time and just went away. Now this was done at an enterprise level with a clear-cut strategy in mind on how do we want to drive everybody at the same time in their own pace, not push everybody to the same level. So we kind of baselined where people were and gave them a direction of what is the next few steps they can take, and the decision was given back to the respective project teams. But the targets, meaning the high-level goals, were still the same for everybody. Improve effort, improve cost. Okay, so those targets didn't change. And when project teams came back to us saying, okay, this is the improvement we can achieve based on the step 2, which is where we define whether it's a bronze, silver, or gold level, we kind of did periodic assessment on whether they are moving in the right direction. And once we knew whether either they're moving in the right direction or some course correction was required, once this process was sorted out, we kind of customized to suit their specific needs. If it is a data-intensive project, then let's do an RBT on data as well. Which is the combination or which is the transaction that happens most of the time in production? Let's test that data combination first. Then you can come down to all the different scenarios, edge cases, etc. Right? So that's the customization we did after we got everybody to a certain level of maturity in terms of how they looked at RBT as well as the tools around it. Right? And final step was to look at RBT holistically, look at where people are doing well and ask them to kind of connect with folks who are lagging behind in the same areas, so there is a exchange of information. Best practices are being shared across the organization. So, and this is the kind of reports we generated, which is something we're still doing. Okay, there's still a lot more work, and like I said, this model, what we have done here, works. Now we are kind of looking at RBT as the output of RBT as input for other processes like automation. Right? So we kind of feeding this information, so automation gets streamlined and kind of gets aligned with RBT output. So, and we are executing it using the same process, and we are kind of extending to various other strategies we want to do. This is a model that has worked very effectively for Cisco. It has saved us a lot of effort in terms of dollar savings. We are kind of close to achieving, almost like $1 million of savings since we started this several quarters back. And that's the amount of effort we have been reduced. There is also intangible benefits, which is improvement in quality and automation being more effective and so on and so forth. So that's the overall benefit, and this is the information we wanted to share with you. Again, I want to thank everybody. If there are any questions, we can take it now, or you can always contact us later. So that kind of hand it over back to the uniform organizer. Thank you.
Thanks for the nice presentation. I'm Prakash from Manhattan Associates. I have a question to Abhiram on the first slide, which you showed that as the test cases from large or high to it comes to the low end where you are making a quick decision on the.
Yeah, this is what I see in Agile. You have user stories that are already prioritized. So it's kind of the requirements are broken down into smaller chunks, and it's already kind of prioritized. There is a backlog that is created, and we take the backlog and start working on it. The second factor in Agile is that everything, irrespective of the priority, all the user stories that we take up has to be completed in the same duration, right? So if you remember, I talked about a monthly releases that we do in Cisco. Our monthly releases are more, it's not exactly Agile in terms of all the tools and continuous delivery tools that we have out there, but it works like similar to Agile. We take certain requirements or user stories, bugs, enhancements, and close it within 1 month. Everything has to be completed within that 1 month. Okay, that's the system we have. But the same metrics and the concept still works for Agile, right? Though we don't have such a big change management. The whole idea of what we are doing here is to build that agility, right? If business wants to go live instead of quarterly every month, then we can do less testing. And therefore, where do we draw that line? This process helps us to draw that line at the right time.
Thank you. Another question on prioritizing the requirements in the model which you showed as the implementation cycle, right? Do you prioritize the requirements as we have newer requirements coming within the same sprint or within the same release cycle? Or is you look up to the requirements all coming up front and then prioritize at one time?
Sorry, I didn't get that question.
So you have the model which says that you prioritize the requirement in your implementation cycle, right? So when a change comes in, requirements come as you progress in the cycle. Do you reprioritize them, or you just go with the baseline prioritize what you had?
So it's a continuous process once again. Not all requirements, unfortunately, come at the same time. So there are some things that creep in later in the cycle. So we kind of keep iterating. Okay, and what we have taken up is anyway kind of it goes through. But if there's something very urgent that comes in, it kind of gets added on. But again, having said that, we are actually moving towards Agile. There's a whole bunch of other things happening, which will help us, do requirements in a much more organized way. There's no need for us to raise any CRs, or we don't have to reprioritize requirements itself. If there's a new requirement, it will be taken up in the next sprint cycle. Okay. We're trying to move towards that process. But I just want to add one point to what you said. The whole RBT that we have done is done first at a requirements level, then at a test case level, then at a test data level. It's done at multiple levels. There are certain projects where we don't have to necessarily do it at a requirements level, because all requirements, if it's like small chunks, it's all equal priority. Then we only do it at a test case level. Okay, like for example, Cisco.com is fully Agile. There's a bi-weekly release, as I understand. So we don't really focus too much on requirements prioritization. We just focus on test case prioritization and the test data prioritization in those areas.
Thank you.
So I would like to